Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our first discipline spotlight tonight here on the SAEF, the South African Equestrian Federation's podcast from the horse's mouth. Tonight, starting in alphabetical order to avoid any in-house fighting, for which we are renowned, is our first discipline, dressage. We're very happy to have in studio with us the president of DSA, Dressage South Africa, Dianne Smith, and we will also have joining us later South Africa's best scoring ever WEG World Equestrian Games competitor, Greta Ferreira, who is just married and is now Greta Houseman. But tonight, let's start with Di Smith. Di, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Is it fun being the president of DSA? Is it everything that you've hoped for so far? Di's not quite sure how to answer that.
It isn't more.
Congratulations for your daughter's success on the weekend. Nicole had a really wonderful SA championships.
Yeah, she did.
That's great. I think she won. Did she won the big tour class?
Yeah, she won the big tour classes and second in the Pre-St. George in 2 classes, and then
That's amazing.
First and second in the advanced in all the classes.
And Nicole herself has just come back from overseas, I think, last year.
Yeah, she's been back from Germany. She was there for 10 years, and she came back last year. It's very, very grateful to be home. Although she had fun there, yeah.
I think it's a very different world to what everyone expects. Everyone thinks it's quite glamorous, and the reality is very far from that.
Having been her groom many times, and her father as well, I can tell you that there's absolutely nothing glamorous about it, about the big shows. They're just absolutely exhausting.
Yeah,
they're fun, but they're exhausting.
So, Di, should we kick off this evening just talking about a little bit of what the origins of what is dressage?
Okay, so I'm going to quote here because I think it's easier, but in its purest classical form, the original aim of dressage was to train cavalry horses for war. The word dressage comes from the French verb dresser, meaning in the context of animals to train. So in essence, dressage is just the training of the horse. And during the war, the difference between a well-trained horse and an ill-trained horse could literally mean the difference between life and death.
I actually love that because I think, and we were discussing it just before we started filming, that dressage should be the foundation of any equestrian sport, really.
Yeah. So basically, our dressage has gone far. You still have the Spanish riding school and the Lipizzanas and
I think it's the Cadre Noir in France.
Yes, and the Spanish, the Andalusian school in Spain where they do the high school movements, I think. But it has come away from that, but that is the origin. That is where it started.
Okay. And I think it's interesting, and we'll discuss the coaching program later. However, that, like in many of the coaching programs locally and internationally, dressage does feature as the foundation of those programs, that it's the basic training of the horse and the rider.
It is. I think that when people hear the word dressage, they think, stuck up, boring, going round and round. But if you think of it, taking a horse onto a jumping course is probably as scary as trying to fight a war. And if your horse isn't properly trained, maybe if you've got a lot of guts, you get around. But imagine the improvement in performance, obviously in eventing and every aspect of the sport when you think about it.
If you're just putting more gears into your horse. And I said to someone the other day, I've been riding a show jump, and I said, I cannot believe that anyone would want to ride without ABS braking and power steering.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and I think there was actually someone, I think the announcer at SA Champs last week, which was held at Fourways Riding Centre, said that show jumping is really just dressage with fences in between, which I really liked. Should be.
It should be.
Totally. So for anyone who's joining us for the first time, what are the levels of dressage? Where would you start and where would you progress to?
Okay, so the levels are prelim, which is basically it's obedience in walk, trot, and canter with not that many other movements. Then you have the novice level, which is also walk, trot, and canter, and you have a lengthening of the trot and the canter, so you would go a bit faster and a bit slower. And you have the beginnings of moving the horse sideways, as in leg yielding.
Yes, we've got that in 5 and 6, I think.
Then the next thing you have is the elementary level, where the rider here learns to do sitting trot. It's expected. And then the a little bit more of the changes of the gears going, the different
We've got
paces.
simple changes.
Yes.
And some shoulder.
Well,
in.
that and some shoulder in. So that's further progression of going sideways. EM, they start to learn flying changes.
And EM is a bit of a unique grade in South Africa.
It's totally unique.
Okay.
There are talks of scrapping it and going back to the old way.
Which was just elementary and then medium.
Yes. So the reason it was put in was because people had issues with flying changes, but I think we've come quite far away from that, because half of EM is with changes, is without flying changes, and the other half is with also more half passes and things like that.
Okay.
And then medium is with all the flying changes and a bit more collection. Advanced has the canter collection with the the beginnings of pirouettes and half pirouettes and that.
And the first tempies, I think.
Yes, the rows of flying changes, 4s and 3s, or maybe 3 across a diagonal, whatever. And then Pre-St. George, well, the small to level.
From Pre-St. George on are the FEI tests.
Those are the FEI levels, yes.
So below that, these are tests that have been structured by Dressage South Africa.
Yes, and it's on a national level, but yeah.
Okay.
So, yes, and then...
Okay, so then the FEI tests are the international level tests, but we use them obviously.
Yes, we use them for our levels. And they're beautiful flowing tests, so one shouldn't have to redo them. And Pre-St. George's with the flying changes every 4 strides, 3 strides, and half pirouettes with collection. Well, there's small to into one has the full pirouettes, which is quite a big jump for some riders, and the 2-time changes, and then small.
That is quite a jump from the Pre-St. George to that. Okay.
Well, that's why we added a level of championship this year. Because
that had the young riders test.
In
it, I think.
So that we had a Pre-St. George championship for those people whose horses aren't ready to do the inter one tests, and the people either not ready or not wanting to.
It's actually lovely to separate it.
And then there's the medium tour, the beginning of Piaffe and Passage, and the ones and everything, and they supposedly make things a lot easier and prepare the horse for Grand Prix, although they're very tricky tests. And then you have the Grand Prix with all of.
I remember doing the medium tour tests, and I think it's just that they make the transitions are so it says between these markers you can do Piaffe and Passage. And I think medium tour was introduced not recently, but there used to be small tour and big tour.
Yes,
and then
so
it was
intermediate kind of thing to help,
bridge.
To encourage,
Okay. And in South Africa, how do riders progress up the grades? Can you just go and put your horse in at any grade?
No, you can't. So what happens is you generally enter at prelim or novice level. You become a member. You don't have to become a member, but you start at prelim novice level, and then when you've got 10 points. 1 point, you get 1 point for when you get 60% in a test, and so it increases. And when you've got 10 points, you can go up.
Okay.
Yeah, you can upgrade.
So and then that would be for each grade. So 10 points to go from novice to elementary.
Yes.
And you can start in novice or prelim. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, no.
Okay. And then 10 points from elementary up. And then once you're riding small tour and above, does the same still apply? You still need
it does apply to go up. But you can choose to ride down. If you're having problems in the higher levels, you can always ride up a grade. So even if you're in, say you graded novice, you can try an elementary test. You don't have to have the 10, but you'll get your points in novice, not in elementary.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for people who want to start an affiliated riding journey, what is the starting point? Do they come to the DSA website first?
They come to the DSA website. They log on, obviously, and there's a choice. You can be a recreational or entry-level rider.
Okay.
If you're an entry-level, if you choose to do that, it's very reasonable. It's about 175 Rand. I stand to be corrected.
Okay.
The horse will be registered,
but
it won't get grading points, and it's free of charge. Children are, I think, 50 Rand a year.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, and then so you can do that. The points are then kept on record, but you don't see them.
Okay.
So that if you do become a full member, you will then get your points.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Oh, that's really lovely. Okay. So people can make the choice halfway through the year if they're really loving dressage to upgrade and continue.
And obviously you're limited to prelim and novice at that level. And then if you want to become a full member, obviously you go through the motions. Yeah.
I know Dressage actually did a wonderful thing for Gauteng Champs where they allowed non-affiliated novice horses to compete in the main championship class.
Oh,
So
not they're affiliated. They are affiliated, but probably from the ungraded classes.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So it was just like, I think it was quite an inclusive way of getting more entries up in a sport that, like you say, can sometimes seem to be a little bit prohibitive or uninviting. And then how does DSA tie up with the FEI, with the International Equestrian Federation?
Okay, so we followed some of the, well, we always adhere to their rules.
Okay.
With our TAC rules and things like that, what bits you can use and all that, we adhere to them 100%.
Okay.
For our bigger shows, if our rules and the SAF rules are silent, we fall back on the FEI rules.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's also helpful, I suppose, for people when they are trying to do, for example, a CDI show. There's no change in rules or TAC, or everything is congruent the entire way through.
Yes.
And then is DSA also the communication link for riders to the FEI? They can't go. Okay.
The federation is. The
Oh,
SAF
so the SAF is always the post box. Okay.
So they come through us if they're dressage riders, and then we will communicate whatever they need to SAF, who will then speak to the FEI.
And then, Di, we spoke briefly about what different kinds of dressage competitions can run in South Africa. So when I started, I thought that, the local show was the be-all and end-all. It was terribly exciting.
All of us.
So you obviously get your district, your local club shows. And then from there, what is, again,
Okay,
like
so basically, I'm only going to talk about the affiliated shows that are part of DSA. So you basically get your shows in your area which are graded or ungraded but affiliated.
Okay.
So you have to be a member. I can go into why it's...
you should do you mind? I think that's great.
Okay, so if you are a member and you go to an affiliated show, you're going to have first aid. That's the number one thing. Welfare of the horse will be paramount. So if there is a recourse, if horses are being abused or something happens, you still can go back to either us or the SAF. You are also going to be competing with horses that have passports and have correctly vaccinated. There is the SAF insurance, and obviously we pay into it. So if there is an accident or anything, you can claim, if you're on the way to the show, at the show, whatever. You're going to be judged by judges who we put, as you know, an awful lot of money into for their training. So basically what it is having a level playing field.
I think also having access to those judges is imperative for your own education.
Yes.
To get quality feedback. We'd all love to go and get 8s, 9s, and 10s, but having really good judging can really change your riding career.
Yeah. No, it can. I mean, obviously you're getting a kind of educated assessment of what you're doing. And as you say, 8s, 9s, and 10s are really wonderful. But if you're serious about it, well.
I think also under that would fall the safe sport that SAEF is introducing. So, it protects the riders from bullying and harassment if they are at an affiliated show.
So basically what we've had cases where a judge is abused, but they're at an unaffiliated show, and we have absolutely no jurisdiction. So we cannot then go and do any disciplinary or even do any hearings or anything. And basically the same with horse abuse.
Yes,
it's sad to say, but things do happen. It just does. And we don't have any jurisdiction over that if it's unaffiliated.
I think also speaking to when you said the welfare of the horse, that the other horses there are correctly vaccinated.
Yes.
You're just in a different league, I think. Yeah. Everyone's just a bit safer and hopefully well looked after. So going back to the types of competitions.
Okay, so we start with the sort of affiliated, ungraded, if you want to do that. You then go on to your local shows in your area, which are affiliated, and you can go and get grading points when you compete, if you're a full member or whatever. From there, you would go to your provincial championships, which fall under the province. And
that would be Gauteng
Dressage Champs, whichever province you're in. You then have the South African championships, which you are not closed we welcome everybody. We're very keen.
So you don't have to qualify.
So you don't have to qualify to ride at these shows. Then the next lot of shows we have, which are national, those are the South African Championships is under the National Committee.
Okay.
The next thing we have is the DSA Challenge. So that show is held in, I think, 7 provinces, 3 joined together. We sponsor the judges. DSA pays for the judges to travel from province to province to
These are the same judges.
Yes, so you have, okay, let me explain properly, but you have 2 judges who go around the country. So they go from province to province, judging the same tests, obviously, and to get a result overall for the country. So what it is that you don't actually have to travel with your horse to SA Champs. It's very, very popular with the smaller provinces. Okay. So they don't have the opportunity to travel, and it's becoming more and more expensive. So they're able to measure themselves against the rest of the country.
That's really lovely.
Yeah, it may not be so popular in the big provinces where people are so spoiled for choice, but in the smaller provinces, it's really a big deal.
Yeah, I remember actually speaking to Nicole and saying something about, we don't want to drive all the way to Pretoria. It's like an hour and a half away. And Nicole just went, I sometimes used to drive 10 hours to go to a show.
Well, she used to drive 4 hours for one class and then back again.
You see.
Yeah, we are spoiled here. Yeah. And then the next, so that's the DSA Challenge. Then we have the World Dressage Challenge, which the FEI used to run it on the same basis as the DSA Challenge with 2 judges who'd go around the region, but they unfortunately stopped that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so what you have is one of your own country's judges and another, you have to have an international judge. We don't have any in the region, so we bring someone in.
Okay.
And the scores then get put against the scores of the other people in your region.
And who else is in South Africa's region?
Australia, New Zealand.
That's some stiff competition.
Yeah, okay. I think Hong Kong, I don't think India is, I think Japan.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know why they changed us, because we used to be against
Brazil and I think, okay.
Yeah. And our fellow African countries are not, they have their own different.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, their own group. Yeah.
Okay.
And then after the World Dressage Challenge, we have the CDI, which is the international competition run by it's under FEI rules. The CDI 2-star would be a competition. It used to be it's up until this year. You could run it Grand Prix. You have 3 judges. They have to be, I think, all 3-star judges minimum. Okay. Or no, you could have a 2-star judge.
Okay.
And we've had those. Everybody loves them. That you don't have a need to stable the horses on the property as with the 3 stars.
But it's a wonderful opportunity to get
these international. Unfortunately, it's changed because as of this year, it's only allowed to run up until medium tour.
Oh.
At the end of this year.
Oh, okay.
As far as I know. I don't know if there's going to be a chance to change it. So then you would have to have a 3-star. And of course, that means 5 judges, 5 3-star judges, and stabling and security and everything. So it's kind of put it out of our league.
But that would also be an opportunity for people who wanted to qualify locally to compete internationally. No,
because to qualify, for World Games, possibly if you had 2 of those shows and you got the qualifying scores,
which is 65.
66.
Okay.
And we had, and the FEI agreed that those could, because you have to prearrange all these things. So I think it's a year in advance where you would do that. So if you had 2 of those shows, although it's getting more difficult, I'm contradicting myself because I'm just trying to think. Teams would have to still be overseas because we are now up against different teams. I'm just trying to think for World Games. I think we could actually qualify here because...
But getting a horse overseas from
But the Olympics now is people chasing ranking points. So you have to do so many shows to be the highest ranked. And in our group, it's Africa and the Middle East. So we're against Morocco. Yassine, the guy who represents Morocco, has gone to a lot of Olympics. Palestine has sent people to, I think, they they've hoped to. The Middle East, Qatar, and those countries are starting to get quite strong dressage riders. So it's going to be a lot more difficult for us.
So the answer is for people like Nicole and Greta to be based overseas where they are.
Well, yeah, Nicole, I think, has had enough of it. But yeah, anybody who wants to do it.
Okay.
At this stage, yeah.
Okay, the answer is to go and slug it out in Europe. Okay.
Yes.
What role do you touched on the judges briefly and said that DSA spends so much money developing these judges. What is the role of judges in the sport, and how do people qualify to become judges?
So I actually would like a judge to answer this.
I'm sure.
The role of judges in the sport, it's a crucial role because the entire sport is based on the judgment of a person sitting watching you and giving and scoring your movements.
And it's incredibly difficult. So for anyone who is not familiar with it, a dressage test is a series of, I think it's a minimum of 18 movements for 10 marks each. And it is, obviously, we've got a set structure on what is a 1 out of 10 versus what is a 10 out of 10. But at the end of the day, it is a subjective sport, which makes it quite hard, as opposed to show jumping, where if you have a pole, you have a pole. It's the old argument.
It does make it subjective, but from the FEI, of what the FEI has done and what we have a very comprehensive training program here, everything is really prescribed. So I think as long as you understand and really are familiar with your rules and training scale and everything, and the judges' training, you would be reasonably good.
I think DSA was very involved recently with, I think Peter Holler was even teaching today.
Yes.
And that's a wonderful opportunity for the judges and riders and coaches to all come together.
Yes,
with
I
this
think
kind
so.
of
I think that's what we need, is to have especially the judges and coaches and riders to understand each other. I think Katrina Wust, who came out with Dressage Connection, she and Peter Holler, both 5-star judges who've judged at Olympics and also the judges from the CDI. They're all 5-star judges. Who are brilliant at their training of other judges, as well as have a huge knowledge of coaching and of the whole sport. And we've been very, very fortunate to have all these people. And
there's been a lovely rush, I think, post-COVID, of people really enjoying this. And the world's becoming so accessible, I think, with... I saw Peter Holler was live streamed today.
Yes.
So that's really great. It allows people around the country to tap into that. If people want to become judges, who's allowed to become a judge?
I think anyone who's got an interest in riding, preferably a rider, but I think that, and somebody who's kind of knows something about dressage and the sport. If you want to become an FEI judge, you have to have ridden at least to Pre-St. George level.
Oh, that's interesting. That's great. It certainly does. And then the process of actually then becoming a judge, they write an
entrance exam, which examines them on the rules.
Okay.
And then they become a trainee judge and
there's a massive commitment of hours. I know that they have to sit and shadow judge and scribe and...
Yes, I'm not so able to give you a full scale thing of that, but yeah, it is huge.
You don't just get to swan in and become a judge. No. Despite what dressage competitors may think, we don't pick these people off the streets and, you have 2 really wonderful programs in place that I want to talk about, and you might have more that you want to discuss. The first is your Solidarity Stars program, which we saw in action at SA Champs over the last week. Please tell us a bit about this. I've just loved this program, and I'm lucky enough to be one of the coaches on it, so I don't want to butt in and take over. I've just been overwhelmed with the support that this program has received.
Okay, so I'm very excited. I mean, I'm delighted with the outcome as well. It started off, I don't know, Charlene was at the forum and we'd had some money left over from the LEAD program, which unfortunately it was a program for children, for the youth, part of SANISA, who were riding for SANISA. And it consisted of a lot of boot camps and things.
Yes.
So we did the first year and then COVID hit. And then, unfortunately, we couldn't carry on with it. It just became impossible. So there was a bit of money left over. And I said, look, return it to the FEI because we can't continue. And then Charlene phoned me from the forum and said, think of something. What can we do? What can we do? And yeah, I just thought, well, what better than to try? It has to be for riders, for
That's wonderful.
yeah. And that's where it started. So we put somebody in charge, Montanique Wilson, who's done an absolutely unbelievable job.
Montanique's been really passionate about transformation and development
Yes.
for ages. And
Yes.
she said, when I did speak to her, I said, Monty, this must be your dream come true. She says, the moment I left the committee, they phone me and they say, we've got money for you. Finally, after 4 years.
I know, well,
So, yeah.
the money is a big problem, as
Of course,
you know, for everybody.
always, yeah.
So Montanique took it and we put an expression of interest out, and we got a whole lot of riders who were keen to join. And it started like that. It was offering tuition, as you know, for people, and then for them to make teams to come to SA Champs, disadvantaged riders. And what can I say? They had
They
their
finished
tuition. They
third,
had their
I
2
think.
months. Yes, the one team finished third and the other seventh.
Yeah.
But they had their tuition. Thanks to Western Shop, we got some very
Absolutely, yes,
heavily
yeah.
discounted outfits, riding kit for them.
I mean, they were sponsored hats, breeches,
they
jackets.
yes.
I mean, I know that there was a
But
payment,
yeah,
it was wonderful.
But these people were passionate, and we did constant progress reports, and they were absolutely fantastic. Every single one of them was amazing, and we're very, very proud because Shepherd, the one guy, came second in the
He
novice
beat me.
championship. Oh, what?
He beat me. It's a very sore topic.
Second,
Well
and
done.
yes, and
It
then
was
I know there
phenomenal.
were other placings. I
Yeah.
can't think of them offhand. And then Eddie from Cape Town, Eddie Newman, won the consolation. Yes, and our teams in the interprovincial novice team championship, the one team came third, the other team came seventh, but they all tried their guts out and they were amazing.
The improvement, I think, in all the riders, and it
Yes.
really is just such a testament to what good coaching can do and what a good program and supportive
and giving
program.
people an opportunity.
Yes, exactly.
And people who are hungry for it, who absolutely went for it.
And I have to tell you, just speaking to Bonga Gumbo was the development rider I worked with for a client of mine, Christelle, and speaking to him at one point, I mean, I get really choked up about it because I said to him, you know, are you enjoying the program? Like how? And he just said, I can't believe I get to do this. I can't believe I get to go to compete at the South African National Championships. He started riding 3 years ago. And it really, for me, I think, reignited quite a passion, you know, for the sport and teaching and kind of going, you know, in a sport that, as you said, is so financially, I don't want to say, you know,
Difficult.
it's, you know, and a lot of riders out there often feel like it doesn't matter how good you are, it matters what you're riding. And that is unfortunately a consideration. To see these riders come and riding on horses that don't belong to them and just passionately putting in the work. And someone like Shep, of course, is just such a testament to the program. It really, really was. And he was hot on the heels of Missy Morgan, who won the novice championships. It was a really tightly contested class.
No, it was. And I mean, it was two pools. There were a lot of horses.
No,
so
it was phenomenal.
really
It
good.
was so exciting. It was we really were torn. Christelle came over to me and she says, I've got terrible news and great news. So I said, what's the terrible news? She says, you're not leading anymore. So she says, but the great news is that Shep's in the lead at the moment. And it really was just one of those wonderful moments where you couldn't have been happier for someone. It was really, really just such a great program. And is the program going to continue going forward?
Yes,
That's
we will.
wonderful.
We're hoping to provide 2 lessons a month for them and a show a month.
That's just amazing.
So with their coaches who've been teaching them. I think it would be an absolute shame to have this sort of flash in the pan thing where they got this opportunity and then they were dumped. But I have to say one thing. I really would like to thank the owners of the horses
Absolutely.
because they are the
Absolutely.
biggest sponsors of all.
Just
So-
let's, someone else.
Yeah, so I would like to thank them. I
that's-
really would.
And I must say, I think the owners have all been so incredibly gracious and passionate. It's been so wonderful to see the enthusiasm of them throughout the whole process, and to see these partnerships develop. It's really been really special.
No, but really, Big thanks.
The second program that's DSR knows in, I think, the second year of running now is the coaching program.
Yeah, the technical skills for coaches and technical skills for riders as well.
Yes, that's the...
So what happened was with COVID, everyone was stuck, and regular NEHAS, we'd been trying to do some kind of thing with the coaches, but obviously traveling from from place to place around South Africa is almost impossible. I mean, you just don't reach anyone. So with COVID, I think they were all sort of going crazy, and she came up with this idea that she'd like to start running these webinars for the coaches and focus on technical skills, not generic coaching or anything, but technical dressage skills. So the first lot of the set of webinars, the first series was last year, was incredibly successful. I don't know whether you've kept up with it, where people have to answer questions. So it's not just sort of
an attendance register,
pretending that you're there when you're asleep or doing something else. And it was unbelievably successful. She and her team of coaches, Niall Quirk's been Irish coach, has been very helpful. Jaco Fourie, Lillian Marlowe, but there's a group, I can't even name them.
It's a really wonderful, the coach developers.
The coach developers, yes. And they were basically people who'd come from the FEI coach developers course. A lot of them. So they've been unbelievably good. They've been running these webinars, and you would be able to tell us which topics they were. This year they're running level 2 for actual dressage riders, but the first level is,
that's wonderful,
for any discipline, for everybody who's keen to do it, and the same for the riders. It's
a really wonderful. So I think the topic last week, if I'm not mistaken, was the turn on the forehand, and just discussing how this entry level to lateral work can improve every horse's strength, suppleness, balance, how to ride it. And they open the floor for questions at the end of every webinar. And it's great because you get a really wide, and it's funny, especially being based in high performance sport in Kyalami, which feels like the heart of horse sport, so in South Africa in so many ways. It's so easy to get a little bit snooty. It is easy to get snooty. And it's interesting because these webinars are open to the country. You get an amazing variety of questions, and you can really see how this program is working, Di. It's really wonderful that you've got people across all disciplines and walks of life having access to this program.
Well, it's a major spin-off from COVID, one of the few.
What a blessing. How do people find out more information about the coaching program? Who can they email?
Well, they can...
I'll check it on the DSA website.
They have their own website as well.
Okay.
Sorry, you called me.
No, it's fine. I don't want to, regular, please don't hate me, but anyone who is interested in it, regular Niehaus, who is heading the Coach Developers Program, her email address is coaches@dressagesa.com.
Okay, thank you.
And I think that's probably the best. Sorry, I don't know where else to direct them, regular. Please don't hate me if you get 5,000 emails. But I really think that's a fantastically worthwhile program.
Yeah, and it is for anyone who's interested. It's not just...
It's a horsemanship program, I think. It's really... Di, you've been... and I want to really stress this because it's the sport depends so much on volunteers. You're a volunteer in your role.
Yes.
You're not doing this for fame or fortune. You're actually doing this for what I think is an awful lot of abuse a lot of the time, because if things go well, people just are happy and they go along their merry way. And when things go badly, it does feel like it's the DA that gets the brunt of everything. How long is your tenure as president?
So I never planned to be president. I never wanted to be president. But unfortunately, the previous president had health issues and resigned. And then I sort of took over for a while, and then there were no other volunteers or suckers or whatever. So I was voted in. So that's a 2-year, it ends next year. And then after that, I haven't decided whether to stay or go.
And because I feel quite strongly about this, our sport being based in volunteers, if people want to get involved, where's the best place for them to start? Is it with their club? Is it with their provincial committee?
I would say with their provincial committee.
Okay.
Yes.
So they would each go, so in our case, it's the Gauteng Dressage
Yes.
Committee, and they can easily find it, I think, on,
Yes.
on Facebook or
Yes,
wherever.
and just say,
Okay.
and then we'll keep them forever.
keep them trapped. What are your next hopes for Dressage South Africa or for Dressage in South Africa?
Okay, so that's a difficult question. Number one, I'm just so pleased that we have our solidarity team.
Yes.
That was my biggest hope, and I would hope that that continues and that it grows all the time, and that we're able to give people opportunity to continue. I hope that we have very strong, which I think we did have, competitions with more,
This last SA Champs was amazing.
yeah, ever improving riders. The Peter Holler, the judge, sorry Peter if you hear this, and I'm quoting you, he's been coming to South Africa on and off for, I don't know, 20 years maybe. And he just said that he really enjoyed this show, and he hasn't been for a while. He was absolutely thrilled with the improvement in standard from I think he judged from small tour up, or I'm not entirely sure, but just generally watching the standard of riding and the horses and everything have improved enormously. And that for me is the most important, that we just don't say, you get people who say, oh, well, what are you worried about? Don't follow the rules. You're not going to the Olympics. Well, who says?
Also, I think it's that important trickle down effect where excellence is just a daily habit. And if not for us, certainly for, like, I teach some amazing young riders, and the hope for them should be that their coaching and their ability is of such a standard.
You've just reminded me that we have many children and juniors and joining us, because that is a big sadness at the moment. We're really short of
young riders.
Well, as in from children or pony riders.
I think
upwards.
that's
It's tragedy.
I think that is there a hand holding between DSA and SANISA?
Well, we do in a way, because the SANISA kids who ride at SANISA can become members and get grading points.
Okay.
So there is that.
And then they could the allure then is for them to be able to compete in their provincial championships and to get their provincial colours.
We would love them to, but unfortunately most of them are, not unfortunately, I mean, they keep riding with SANISA. The main thing, and what our lead program was meant to do, but unfortunately it didn't happen, was to teach them the skills in dressage that they would really enjoy it and want to continue when they finished school.
Yes, I think that's the...
that unfortunately...
I think I find really interesting as well is dressage seems to be quite it's a lifelong affair. It's something that's... And I'm very interested always by the ages of the Olympians, which is quite well documented, to see that the oldest Olympians consistently are the dressage riders. And even though the younger riders have access to amazing training and horses, you sometimes see them peaking a little bit. When I say later on, they're not peaking like the gymnasts, for example, at 13 or 15, which is quite it's not a strength thing.
Well, one rider, Mr. Huketsu, who Nicole kind of befriended on her journey, his last Olympics, he was 74, Japanese rider.
That's amazing. That's just fantastic. So I think that also I love that it is this lifelong affair with the sport, and I think it was Iwanovsky who was on his deathbed, and someone said, like, do you have any regrets? And he said, I just regret that I didn't learn more about dressage, or, I'm paraphrasing. And I think that, you can hear that and be devastated by it, because, sometimes at 30 we think we know quite a lot. But I think that's just such a lovely way of approaching the sport. And joining us now via Zoom all the way from Germany, we have Greta Ferreira, now known as Greta Hausmann. Greta has just competed in the World Equestrian Games representing South Africa and taking not only herself but the country to a personal best of 70%, which is really an outstanding achievement. I did say to Greta that her horse, known as Dani, must have a very strong back because he had an entire nation riding that particular competition with him. Thank you so much for joining us, Greta. How are you?
Good. How are you guys doing?
We're very good. Thank you. You've just gotten married, had a honeymoon, competed at Herning. You're raising a 1-year-old. Thank you so much for making time to join us tonight. We really appreciate it.
We have to thank Leo because he finally fell asleep.
That's perfect. That's perfect. We've all been there, all three of us sitting here.
Yeah.
So great. So just before we discuss herning, which I'm sure so many people are dying to hear about, including myself, would you mind just telling us like where your dressage career began?
Oh, where do I start, Georgie? We of course know each other for a long time. But I think because my whole life I've basically been riding, and started really early at 3.5. My mom took me to a riding school, but and then in children's, I pretty much did all the disciplines and jumping and eventing and dressage with Claire Webb. And then when it was time to go to juniors, I then transitioned to dressage, and Karen Keller became my coach, and I fell in love with dressage, and the rest is pretty much history.
What made you fall in love with dressage? I mean, it's easy for Di, myself, and you to talk about this because I think when you've had that feeling, it's just there's nothing like it. But maybe you can be a bit more eloquent than us.
So I have a very vivid image of in my mind, and I've spoken about this in a lot of interviews, and I just thought till this day I won't forget this moment. And I got my first horse, and he was standing at Claire Webb's, and he was in the field in the morning, and we went, and he got excited about something, and then in the moment he was pretty much doing a passage in the field, and at that point I didn't know what that was, but I was fascinated by how this horse was moving, and to this day it's such a vivid image in my mind, and I just thought I want to know how that horse is doing that, and I want to recreate it when I'm riding it. And it for some reason something bit me in that moment, and that is just when I was like, and then Claire was such a good coach, because honestly, she has had so many different type of children riders and pony riders with her, and she really has groomed all of us to figure out what it is that our passion is. And she said, look, Greta, I think if this is something that interests you, then you should probably go into dressage. And she then put me in contact with Karen Keller, and that is how it all started. And so that's where the love for dressage started. I think I was about 12 or 13. So
that's just wonderful. And where are you based now, Greta, and why are you based where you're based?
So I'm based in a town called Mülheim an der Ruhr, and the closest big town to it in Germany is Düsseldorf. It's like 15 minutes away from us, Düsseldorf. And I'm based in Germany because if you want to do these level of international shows, you have to be, I think like Di and Nicole also know, you have to be based in Europe, and you have to be somewhere central where you can travel to all these big shows. I mean, if we travel to these shows, some of the shows are still 6 to 8 hours away, but it is all doable. And I think at the end of the day, Germany is just quite central. And as a heart and a hub of the sport, so dressage, I mean now specifically. Yes. So
I think Germany is the hub of so much equestrian sport. I mean, it's just wonderful.
That's true.
I was just saying to Di, very naively, for South Africans, we feel like Kyalami, which is obviously was your home at one stage, is the heart of our equestrian sport, but it's a very different kind of scenario compared to you guys. Greta, won't you tell us a little bit about your horses?
Okay. Where do you guys want me to start?
So I think we all want to know about Donnie, but also who your up-and-coming horses are and why you have these horses. I'm very fascinated by the journey with your horses. I think Donnie was meant to be a show jump. No, that was
Lavinia. That was Lavinia. So long story short, in 2013. I was finished with studying at University of Pretoria, and ideally I think I would have wanted to go overseas straight after matric, but my mom and dad was very strict about getting a degree, and I'm happy I did it because I have it behind my name.
You
and
have an LLB, I think,
Lisa? No, BCom Investment Management.
Okay. Even better. And then you went and chose the worst investment possible. I mean, the irony is
pretty much.
I
went and decided to invest in horses and not stocks. yeah, and then when I was finished with studying, I said to my parents, look, they of course knew what my passion was always, and I said, I really want to still go overseas. And 2013, we went over to Denmark, and we looked at horses, and the plan was actually to find a horse and to bring it back to South Africa. And then when I got here to Europe, I just realized this is my dream, and this is what I want to do, and this is where I want to be. And if I want to achieve something, I have to be here. If I want to achieve the big things that I wanted to achieve. And and then we looked at a lot of horses, and I found Dianne, or we found Dianne at Halstrand. We looked at him, and he was a 4.5-year-old, really scrawny, but I just fell in love with him. And that was not the plan at all. The plan was to come over and look for a horse that's, say, 6 or so, that could maybe already do walk-trot transitions. The flying changes didn't have to be in, but the plan was to get a horse to take back to South Africa. And I got here and I just realized, look, if I'm going to have to, for the amount of money that we had to spend at that time, I will have to go for a younger horse with a higher quality, because the moment these horses can do things here in Europe, they are so expensive, it's sometimes unaffordable. So so we got to Dianne, and I realized there's no point in bringing him back to South Africa if I want to be here and I want to do things here. And that's where the whole journey started. So he was actually the first horse that we got here in Europe, and he was 4.5. And then my whole process started of flying back and forth between South Africa and coming here for. So the Dianne stayed. It's really a funny story. The Dianne stayed at Halstrand then, and at that stage, Daniel Bachmann-Andersen was still working for Halstrand, and Daniel then trained me on the Dianne. And then when I was not there in Denmark, he would ride the Dianne and keep him fit, and then I would go over and ride with Daniel and the Dianne. And then after a few years, or 2 years or so, I think, 3 years it was, I just decided this is not working in the sense of flying back and forth. It's just too time consuming. It is too expensive. And I cannot completely submerge myself into the sport like you have to if you want to achieve these things.
Why were you flying
And then
home?
I made the decision. Say again?
Why were you flying home at that stage instead of basing yourself?
Family. I think at the end of the day, it is really hard to go to a different country that's not your home, that's not South Africa, and to sit there alone. And there was many nights of crying and being alone and being like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. And it's a very, very hard process if you're doing this alone. You get thrown into a country where you're driving on the wrong side of the road, you can't speak the language, you're completely overstimulated, completely overflowed in a way with all this information that you kind of have to be to a point and say, right, and I mean, at that point I was still very young. So it's a big learning curve, and you have to really be tough to do it.
I think a lot of people glamorize it, and it's actually, as you say, and I know as Nicole has said before, it's really stressful. It's stressful. It's scary. It's a very solitary journey.
It's a very, very eensaam, like you would say in Afrikaans.
Love that.
It's you give up a lot. You give up a lot to do this, and I think the biggest thing you give up is being around your family. That is definitely for me still to today. It's a very hard thing. And yes, I'm married now and I have my own child, but
not to have Elmarie with you. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm sure she wants to be a present granny, I'm sure.
Yes, very much so. So it is video calls all the time, and it's never the same, Georgie. But at the end of the day, you have to weigh up what you're doing here and what is your passion and what do you really want to achieve, and are you willing to do it or not? And that's what it comes down to.
Sorry, and then besides Dani, you then got Lavinia, and you have a lovely grey as well, who I can't recall at the moment.
Yeah, so the grey is called Kalyani. We call him Kali Bear to be exact, because he's just an absolute teddy bear. All my horses have completely different personalities, attitudes. And the funny thing though is that everyone keeps saying to me, Greta, you don't really have a type. And then I said, no, I don't have a type. But the one thing is that I've realized is that every single one of my horses has got some type of jumping blood in them.
That's interesting.
So I clearly do have some type of type on the mother line, because they all have jumping blood in them and the mother line.
Those old eventing roots of yours.
Yes,
Yeah.
I really honestly think something there comes through, Georgie, because it's the weirdest thing. Every single horse that I seem to connect with or find, like my type of horse, has some type of jumping line in it.
Greta, what are like 3 things that you look for? I mean, obviously you found Donnie when he was really young and he's just spectacular. But what are 3 things that you would advise people to look for in a horse if they were looking for a high performance dressage horse? Besides passaging in the field.
Yeah, no, this is a big thing. I don't want to, I think the thing is the following. I can jump in here and say rideability and this and that. The problem is the following for me. I have now trained 3 different horses here in Europe to Grand Prix, and they've all been completely different. And Lavinia has had unbelievable rideability, 100%. She will take a bullet for you and she will continue doing it. Dianne has been an obscenely difficult journey. So when it comes to rideability, I can't say that is the thing that it was that got him to Grand Prix. And Kali in itself is also not the most rideable. I think if I have to be honest, I think it comes to, and it's hard to put that in words and it's hard to see that in a horse, but it comes to heart. It comes to, does this horse have heart to do this? Because it's not always about the most rideable horse or the easiest horse that goes to Grand Prix. These horses, when you get to this level of Grand Prix, there's something else that you can't really put into words that they have to have. It's a fire that will fight for you. So I think it's more about, can you connect with this horse that is in front of you? And can you build a partnership with this horse? I think that's more important.
Will you go to war for your horse? It's a
Say
very,
that again?
Will you go to war for your horse? It's a very two-way street.
And it sounds very like theatrical in a way, but I've gone through this now many times, and it is through and through the thing that comes out at the end is, what type of relationship can you build with this horse? Is this horse a horse that, it doesn't have to have people, it doesn't have to have many people that it trusts, but does it trust you? That's the most important, I think.
We were talking about the origins of dressage earlier on and saying that it was originally a cavalry discipline, you know, and that's how it was born. And it's interesting that you raised that. I really love that. Who are you currently coaching with, Greta?
You're going to laugh, but no one except Patrick. Patrick has been for the last, since 2018, when we went to the World Equestrian Games. It's been him and I.
That's fantastic.
And we just work together. Yeah, sometimes he's very harsh on me and then I get harsh back, but it works, and he has a phenomenal eye, and he's strict with me, and he says a thing as it is. He's German in that way. And even though he doesn't ride at this level, some people just have this natural ability to see things, you know, that are capable. So it's been him and I, and it's been a very big momentous moment for us, what happened in WEG, of course, because we've been at it day in, day out. And so
what for yourself as a rider, but also for other riders, what's the biggest thing that you, for yourself as a rider, have like invested in from a personal development point of view? Like, a lot of people swear by Pilates, other people say mental coaching is the absolute, you know, like cornerstone of their training. What for you would you say riders must prioritize?
Mind, definitely mind.
That's interesting.
I think the sport is so hectic, in the sense of psychological. People sometimes don't understand how psychologically taxing it can get. And, we always say, like, we ride our horse for 40 minutes, and for the rest of the 23 hours of the day, we are sitting there thinking about it. And it is what it is. And I have to also be honest, I think for me, it's an addiction, because something might not work that day, and then I will literally sit there and think about it the whole day. The only time I don't think about it is while I'm riding a different horse. But the moment I really try my hardest that every single horse that I ride, and also the clients' horses that I have here that are here with me for training, that I really ride every horse and I get on them with a blank slate. But of course, when something didn't work with my own horse, when I'm finished with work in that regard and I'm finished teaching everyone, I sit there and I start thinking. And so, I think psychologically you have to be very strong, and you have to mentally prepare yourself for everything.
Totally. Okay, so tell us about herning. I mean, it just sounds like that there's that iconic photo of you, just with both fists up in the air. Donnie just looks so pleased with himself. He looks like he's smiling. You're grinning. Obviously you guys have had this enormous long preparation towards this, and this is by no means the penultimate moment in your journey, but obviously to this date it has been. How was your preparation for this? And are you okay? It's just wonderful, Grace. And you're going to make me cry as well. Please don't do that. We're all so incredibly proud of you.
Thanks.
We're busy recording, so we can edit that out, but I really don't want to edit that out.
It's okay.
I just feel it really speaks to the absolute raw emotion of everything you've sacrificed, and you're believing in this horse, going to war for this horse going to war for you. And how often in life does it all come together in such a perfect moment?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't happen often. And I mean, for a lot of other big names in Europe, like a 70% is not a big deal, but it is a very big deal for us. It's a really big deal for us. It's a really big deal for me, because at the end of the day, that's always the first goal that we, as a rider at this level, want to achieve. And I think it all just got so momentous because of the amount of times that I literally thought, I'm not going to get this horse to Grand Prix, and it's just not going to work. And when it then eventually all comes to play, and we all have this these horses in our life that we believe in, and we know what their potential is, and he has been that, but it's never been able to really pull off or pull together. And to have gone out into that stage and to do it there, and he just and it wasn't a perfect test, but for that day, he was the most he was with me ever. And it was just something that you just couldn't put into words. And I think that's also, like, I couldn't actually help my emotion when I saw the scoreboard. I think lots of people probably thought, oh my gosh, she's crazy. But I think at the end of the day, a lot of the riders of my fellow riders who were competing with me, just like really celebrated with me, because they understand this feeling. They understand what we work for every day of our life here, and what we strive for, and the amount of disappointment we have to go through every time we go to a show and it doesn't pull off for whatever reason. And it was just something so unbelievably special that I'll never ever forget in my life. And hopefully I can continue growing and becoming better with him. And like earlier you said, I must speak about Kali and stuff, and he's also a really special horse, and I love them, and everyone always says to me, who's your favorite horse? And I can't answer that, Georgia. I truly honestly can't answer that, because it's really honestly two completely different animals. They have such different characters that you just can't explain that and say, right, I love this one more than the other one. But for where Dianne and I started, and where we are now, and what happened that day, a momentous moment for us both,
It
for
was-
all of us, for our whole team, for me, for Patrick, for Senya, my groom, you know, my vet, my farrier. Everyone thinks it's an individual sport, but it's not. It's a team sport, really. Honestly, all
takes
these things
such a
have to
massive
work
team.
and yeah. So yeah.
I think it's also, you raise something which is so lovely, and we've just come off of a week of the South African National Dressage Championships here.
Yes, I saw.
And it's so lovely, Greta, to hear you push the narrative that the 70% was for you the highlight, because you often see people coming off a podium in third place, and obviously it's a different, you know, I'm sure Charlotte would be disappointed with the 70 at some point. But but it's so much about your own journey dressage. And it's not necessarily
100%.
about the win. Sometimes it's about being happy to get a 60. In your case, to get a 70 and to pull that out, as you said, in this enormous, I'm getting choked up again, in this enormous stadium, you know, you literally had to say to your horse, I need it now. I need everything we've put to, like, I need you to give it to me now. And he went, okay. And I just think that's...
Yeah.
Can I?
Yes, please.
And I think at the end of the day...
Sorry, Dianne.
Yeah, Di.
No, having watched all of this with Nicole and you guys and everything, you're basically riding against yourself.
All the time.
Yeah.
At the
Always.
level that you guys are at, you're riding against yourselves. So when you get these really good marks like Greta got, it's like, as you say, maybe Isabel would be disappointed, but it's this massive, massive achievement that
It's
nobody
phenomenal.
even can believe.
Yeah.
When
It's really amazing.
And I think that's exactly what you said. What you guys also just said. Now, at the end of the day, that day was my win.
Yeah.
It was literally like I won for myself,
Yes.
and that's a feeling that you just, you know, my mom always said, Greta, it's always, honestly, from the day that I can remember starting dressage, my mom always said to me, Greta, it's always about improving your personal best. That's all that this matters about. And that is exactly what that day was. So it's a phenomenal feeling. It's really great.
Greta, you touch on your team and you say your farrier, your vet, your groom. What is something that you prioritize horse care wise for your horses that you think people should give attention to?
Yeah, so I think what's really important for me, what's been very hard in the beginning, now it's not so difficult anymore because I'm based here in Mulheim and at Patrick's farm here. In the beginning was very hard for me because we in South Africa have a very, very high level of horsemanship where we allow our horses to go out in the fields and the paddocks, and there's much more letting a horse be a horse, and that has not been the easiest here. In the beginning, it was very hard. Lots of people frowned upon me for letting my Grand Prix horses go to the field or whatever. And for me, that from day one has been super important, and I still to this day believe in it, and I will stand by it, and I morally feel very strong about it. And for example, here with us, we have what's called a paddock box. So the stable is the stable, and then there's like a walk out for every horse, so they can walk in and out. And most people don't allow their really high level sport horses in a box like that, but I believe the more the horse can move, the better, because of course due to weather they can't go out like we do it in South Africa. They just can't, you know, if there's snow or there's ice, it's too dangerous. So I personally really try and let my horses be horses as much as possible. That's a big thing for me. I try and get them on different footing quite often because I think it's very important for the tendons.
The FEI actually did a great white paper a couple of years ago, and the event horses had the longest sound careers in the FEI, and they put it down to that.
And it's because they are mostly on different types of footing all the time. They are being horses at the end of the day. And I think touch wood, so far it's been working for me, and I will continue doing it this way. Of course my vet is here, and we really look at the horses every 3 to 6 months and do checks on them and flexions and see if they're fine. And if they need help somewhere, then we treat them. But so far, everything has been, going smoothly, and I'm blessed in that regard. And I think at the end of the day, you have to just try as much as possible, as hard as it is, not to try and wrap these horses that are this good in cotton wool.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to let them be horses. Yeah.
Well, their mental health is equally as important as ours.
Definitely. Definitely.
Greta, one last question. What comes next for you? What comes after a 70 at the World Equestrian Games?
I think it's.
I hoped you were going to say an 80.
Of course, we can all dream, and I will continue dreaming, and I will continue. I think, Georgie, my biggest dream and my biggest goal is to hopefully eventually get in the top 50 of the world, in the world rankings. I really want to go for that. I don't know how long it will take, but it's my next goal. So we will see how. But then I also have to say, I am a mom, and Leo, of course, for me comes first. And it was really all like really a blessing from God that this worked with Wade, because it wasn't really planned that I was going to go and do herning. I didn't know if I would manage to do it after giving birth to Leo. So I think for me right now, I'm taking it day by day. Of course, I have my dreams and my goals, and I want to improve on the 70 and just keep going at where I'm going at, and hopefully continue, opening or letting the dressage world internationally start to see South Africa as well, and see, we are capable, and we do have a lot of knowledge and a lot to give the sport in a way. And I think a big thing that we have to give is passion. I think a lot of riders here that's been at this for so long, because the sport is so old, they sometimes lose the essence of what dressage is about, and about the purity of it, of how you really build this relationship with this horse to do these things for us that they don't have to do. Let's be honest about it. They don't have to go in Passage and Piaffe. We're making them do that. So, yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us here this evening at the SAEF's first discipline spotlight. Tonight was dressage. The next discipline spotlight will be on driving. But we hope to see you all next week for this next podcast. We want to thank our guests tonight, the president of Dressage South Africa, that is Dianne Smith, and also our dial-in guest from Germany, South African WEG competitor, Greta Hausmann, rather. Thank you so much for joining us.